Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Quad Turbolaser Cannons. Maybe the worst changed upgrade in all of Armada 1.5. This once interesting upgrade has been changed severely to be virtually useless. We're going to talk about ways that this could be useful, some things that could make this better, and we'll put together a fleet that's trying to salvage this once interesting upgrade in today's video. If you guys are new here to the channel, I talk a lot about Star Wars Armada and other Star Wars tabletop games like Star Wars Legion and X-Wing, and a lot of just Star Wars gaming in general. I'd love to have you stick around. We're also giving away a lightsaber right now. All you have to do to enter to win that giveaway is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. The giveaway is going to run through the end of the year, so you have lots of time to enter to win that. I'd love to hear from you guys on some of your favorite upgrades in Star Wars Armada, and what do you think they could do to make this one better? So let's take a look at Quad Turbolaser Cannons. It's a modification. It's a 10-point turbolaser upgrade. It says, while attacking, if at least one red die face has an accuracy icon, add one red die set to the accuracy icon to your attack pool. So what this does is it has it's got a condition that it can basically multiply a red accuracy if you happen to get one. Now, there's only one accuracy on the red attack dice. You only have a 1 out of 8 chance of even getting one. So your chances are pretty slim. But on top of that, it's a modification. So it takes the place of a highly contested slot. And not only that, it's a turbolaser slot, but also it's using your modification. So it rules out a lot of potential other upgrades. Now, this in 1.0, this one used to be a little bit different. It didn't used to be a modification. And that was, made it still expensive, but it only existed to potentially, to make a big dice pool even bigger. This one came out with the Liberty, if I remember correctly, and since that was a double turbolaser ship, you could run this with something else, and potentially try to get even more dice added, especially things that you normally couldn't do. This one was also used to be comboed a little bit with H9 turbolasers, which allows you to turn a hit to an accuracy, and then you could potentially have, 2 accuracy pretty reliably. I used to like to combo it once upon a time with Spinal Armament, because you could then, on a double turbolaser ship, you could potentially add 2 extra dice to each shot if you happened to roll the red accuracy naturally. When I used to try to do that, it was pretty slim, but it had been changed to now become a modification, along with other upgrades like H9 turbolasers, which are also a modification. You can only have one modification on a ship, so even on a ship with double turbolaser, this one is a lot more difficult to actually make use now. So why is it so bad? It was always kind of bad, but it had its potential uses. First off, most times when you're attacking, you're going to go after the enemy ship's brace. Most ships that that have brace, you tend to have only one. For most attacks, you only need a single accuracy. When you're attacking, a big Star Destroyer with a brace, you want to get that brace. You just need the 1 accuracy. If you're attacking a flotilla, you just want to get the scatter. Even if you're attacking a scatter ace squadron, you just want to get the scatter. And so, again, most of the time when you're attacking, you don't want too many accuracies because that tends to take away from damage. But you want that 1 accuracy to get that crucial defense token. Now, having a double accuracy isn't necessarily bad, but this one already requires that you get the 1 accuracy. And not only that, it has to be a red accuracy, which is a pretty tough die to roll an accuracy on. Usually blue accuracies are where people get their accuracies. Red accuracy is pretty rare to get. So it's already a 10-point upgrade. It goes in the turbolaser slot, which is already a very highly contested slot. And so it's one of the most expensive upgrades in the game. It's tied for the most expensive turbolaser upgrade slot in the game, but it's also got a tremendous fail condition in that you might not roll a red accuracy. You likely aren't going to roll a red accuracy, and so most of the time it's going to do nothing. So it used to only really be useful in builds that could guarantee getting an accuracy. And you had a pretty good chance of that with H9, but you can't do that anymore because H9 is now also a modification, so you can never team these two up together. So, you know, the fact that you now have to put something else in your build to guarantee an accuracy makes this card, now it's already expensive at 10 points, now it has to be way more expensive because you have to add something else. Like maybe if you're running Rebels and you're going to run Home 1, which is already a great upgrade that's given your fleet a tremendous firepower, but it's at a ridiculously expensive cost because you have to bring an over 100-point ship just to bring the Home 1 title out there. And Home 1 doesn't work for its own ship. So if you have an extra 110, 120 points-ish to spare, go ahead and bring Home 1 to your Rebel fleets. And that, of course, will guarantee that accuracy. Now, of course, that's not going to be how we're going to use it today. We're going to do an Imperial fleet. But yeah, it becomes very difficult to manufacture those. But why is this good? Well, it's potentially good because it, you know, upgrades that add dice tend to be expensive, and most of them tend to be modifications. It's not likely to, you know, it's not very easy to have upgrades that are going to add multiple dice especially to multiple shots. And this one can potentially add dice to both of your shots if you're shooting, because it's not an exhaustible upgrade. However, it's very much outshined by quad battery turrets, which is a 5-point upgrade that has is also a modification, but as a blue die, and it has a different fail condition. They just have to basically be going faster than you for quad battery turrets to work. Whereas this one, it doesn't require what the enemy ship does, but it does require that you have that red accuracy. So depending on, you know, the fleet you're flying against and how things are going, each one can fail to work, but this one's twice the cost. So that's kind of why it's bad. But why it's good is that you can potentially add an extra die to each of your attacks. Now, the interesting thing is that you can potentially re-roll that red die. Now, of course, if you want to be able to re-roll that die, that's going to add an additional cost. You either have to have a token or some other mechanics that are going to give you re-rolls, and so that becomes quite problematic as well. So, but maybe you get the extra accuracy. It's going to be good sometimes against a ship that maybe has 2 redirects and you got to get them both, or you're going after, you have a smaller attack pool, but you're going after a flotilla and you don't want them to be able to evade either. Evade's gotten a little bit better. But quad battery turrets is also good against newer ships, especially Clone War era ships. Things like the Clone Wars ships that have salvo, and they don't have too many ships that have duplicate defense tokens. And so now all of a sudden there's a little more incentive to have extra accuracies with salvo being a thing. So quad battery turrets does have a potential future, but it needs more ways to manufacture accuracies to be useful as is, and it needs cheaper ways to manufacture accuracies. If I were to fix it for the game today, I think it needs one of 3 things. I think it either needs to A, not be a modification, B, be cheaper, or C, have some kind of an easier still have an easier time to make it work. Like maybe it requires any accuracy and not just a red accuracy or something like that. But I think I think the easier thing is I'd rather it either be cheaper or not be a modification anymore. And I think the most likely thing is for it to maybe just come down in cost a little bit to compete more with quad battery turrets, which is, in my opinion, better. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to make it work as is today. So I'm going to be looking at an Imperial fleet. And the linchpin to this fleet is going to be a squadron, much cheaper than Home 1. It's going to be Captain Jonas. Captain Jonas says, while a friendly ship is attacking a ship at distance 1 of you, you may change 1 die to a face with an accuracy icon. So if we can get Captain Jonas in place, then all of a sudden we're going to be able to trigger the quad battery turrets that we're going to have in this list. Now, we're not going to have him out there by himself, but we're going to have a lighter squadron presence. This is going to kind of help deal with those moderate squadron builds. We're obviously not going to be able to count on Jonas if we have a super heavy squadron build, unless we, of course, move him out in position early enough. But we'll put a couple of other folks out there I'm going to put Merrick Steel out here. I'm going to put Saber Squadron with their sniping shenanigans. And I'll put a regular TIE Fighter. And this will give us 4. It gives us a little bit of deployment. And it gives us, hopefully, enough to just to deal with, like, you know, maybe 2 A-Wings or something kind of like that. But now we have to add our ships. And because I wanted to have enough points for our ships to work, we're going to start off with a Simoon. One of the reasons I'm going with a Simoon is because a Simoon has double turbo lasers, and double turbo lasers is always nice. It's kind of one of the things I liked to do initially when I first started using this awesome upgrade. Well, when it was awesome, as I would run it on ships with double turbo lasers, and I ran it on the Liberty a little bit. But we're going to put quad turbo laser here. We do have a lot of red dice on the Simoon. That's one reason why the Simoon's a great candidate for it. We're going to want to trigger this multiple times, so we're going to put Gunnery Team here. That is going to allow us to maximize our opportunities to use this ship, or this upgrade, and we are going to put linked turbo laser towers. Now, I want to point out that I have a lot of gimmicks here just to get myself 1 extra die, and I could save points by just simply going with Spinal Armament, which would outright give me another die in this case. So Spinal Armament would just clearly be the better option in this case. And so I'm trying to find ways to make quad turbo laser cannons work. And of course, you know, it's not going to work as much here. Now, if I were running red anti-squadron ships, like if I was running Quasars, the quad turbo laser well, they can't go on the Quasar, but a ship that can throw red dice at squadrons, I want to point out that quad turbo laser cannons can potentially trigger against squadrons. So if I were to run Agent Callus on this ship and I attacked an enemy ship that was named and I rolled a red accuracy, then I could potentially use quad turbo laser cannons to add a red accuracy to that as well. So I guess that's one of the things that quad turbo laser cannons kind of has going for it, and that it can potentially affect anti-squadron attacks. So you might consider putting it on a Superstar Destroyer, possibly. However, I'm not doing that here because I don't have red in the Simoon, and basically the ships that could take this aren't going to fit in this build. And so I wanted to point that out. I think that's one of the reasons why it might be at the point cost it is. I wouldn't even mind if they just removed its ability to work against squadrons and just left it as an anti-ship option. That would have been fine with me as well. But it is what it is, and this is kind of part of my thought process at this point. All right, we are going to add Intensify Firepower to this build. This will allow us to, if we don't need that second accuracy, it'll allow us to change it to a hit if we need to, or just change something else to a hit. Of course, you know, red dice heavy ships like the Simoon have a good chance of rolling some blanks, so we want to maximize this. And both Intensify Firepower and the quad turbo laser cannons and linked turbo laser towers can all help us with multiple shots. And so that's good. Linked turbo laser towers can also re-roll our accuracy if we need to, or help re-roll a red into an accuracy, giving us more chances to get this if, for some reason, Captain Jonas isn't in position in time. I'm going to put Director Krennic on board the ship, giving us even more chances to get re-rolls and red dice manipulation. He is going to work well with this, and we might have, and this could be one of those opportunities where we roll, lots of accuracies and really have our choice of what we want to keep and what we want to re-roll. We have a lot of dice mitigation here. This flagship will not require Jonas as much as the rest of our fleet will. But considering we'll have a lot of accuracies, this influenced my commander. And of course, this is going to be my flagship in this list, and this is going to be something I don't normally run, but I decided to go with Emperor Palpatine as my commander for this list. The reason being is now I find myself in a situation against ships where if I can predict that I'm going to have at least 2 accuracies with most, if not all, of my shots, and that's going to allow me to really wreak havoc with Palpatine and say, okay, fine, you can brace, I'll accuracy everything else, and now all of a sudden you're going to run out of upgrades very, very quickly. And if I'm able to do what I want to do, then I can then quickly re-roll all of those accuracies into damage and not have to worry about it. anymore. So I think that's kind of a nice way to maybe make Palpatine's squeeze just a little bit tighter against enemy defense token, and make these accuracies go a little further. For other ships, we're going to run an Architans. Of course, Architans are one of my favorite ships, and I normally would put enhanced armament on them. Now, at least in this case, the quad turbolaser cannons is the same price as enhanced armament. I either run enhanced armament or quad battery turrets. Quad battery turrets is usually better, but in this case, as long as I've got Captain Jonas, I can still guarantee that I'm getting extra dice. We won't have any built-in reroll shenanigans here, but I'll be running Vader in the fleet at some point. For this ship, I'm going to put Admiral Ozzel on there, and I'm going to duplicate this one and change out Ozzel on the second one with Admiral Titus. They're two disposable officers who give you a little nice effect at the beginning of the game, and then I can quickly dispose of them when I need to. I'll put a Gazanti-class cruisers on here to activate some of my squadrons and just be activation padding, and he will carry Darth Vader. And that gets me up to 398, and at this point I can either stop here and have a slight bid, or I can add the lovely comms net to allow this ship to pass some additional tokens on to my flagship to allow it to trigger Intensify Firepower each round. Now, the beauty on this, and one thing that this gives my Architans that they normally wouldn't otherwise have, is the potential to get the front shot also turning into an extra die. So ideally here, the Architans want to do a concentrate fire, and they want to, attack maybe out of the front first, see how that works, maybe add a die to the front shot, hope for an accuracy, maybe have Vader choke out an officer, and then, see if we can end up with 3 dice out the front, and then potentially 4 dice out of the side if we get an accuracy on that shot as well. And a lot that, of course, will all be there if Jonas is in place, and we can really wear down our opponent's shields that way. And of course, we do have some squadrons in the mix to also add to the damage picking, because Jonas is a bomber after all. So is Merrick Steele. The TIE Fighter and Saber Squadron are there to kind of pick off those A-Wings or counter squadrons from a distance, or at least the Saber Squadron is, and it takes some flak. So there we go. And that's the build at 400 points. You can certainly drop some things if you need to. You could certainly go with a cheaper commander if you would like, but we still have 4 ships, 4 squadrons, pretty well balanced. It's not optimal. Again, we're trying to make quad battery cannons. I'm sorry, quad turbolaser cannons. I'm trying to make this upgrade work and see what fun it might do. I think it will do well against squadrons and builds that have salvo. It might do well against agate fleets that have lots, like Starhawk fleets that have lots and lots of defense tokens. You'll have tons of options with the right shot from a fleet like this, and it will, give them some tough choices. So that's kind of the things that we're looking at to do in this build. We have objectives to look at as well. In this one, I feel like I'm going to go with surprise attack. Nobody ever goes with that. People don't want to have their flagship out of position. People don't want to do too much of that. For our yellow, I like knowing where the fight's going to be. I always like going with fire lanes because of that. But at the same time, I think a planetary ion cannon would be a fun one here, because if I'm able to roll the crit on there, I can make them choose and exhaust one of their defense tokens, and that gives me better choices for the accuracies. I'm like, oh, did you exhaust one of your redirects? Okay, good. I'll now accuracy your other redirect and your brace. I feel like that could fit very well in what we have going on here. And for this one, since I have a pretty good blend, I'm going to go with superior positions, since I do actually have some squadrons that could be sneaking around, taking rear shots, and scoring extra victory points in this case. But yeah, so it's more of a theoretical build, but I just wanted to get the discussion going on quad turbolaser cannons. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, guys. And that's going to do it for today's video. I am using Ryan Kingston's Fleet Builder for those of you who occasionally ask. I'll put a link to that in the video description. Be sure to join our Discord. Keep the discussion going. That's actually one of the discussions from a couple of days ago we had about quad turbo laser cannons that kind of inspired this video, and that's a great way to kind of get in the discussion, ask questions, and keep that theory crafting going. I want to thank my patrons so much for keeping the channel alive. You guys are amazing, and I couldn't do this without you, so thank you for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Have a great day.